Keith sent an urgent message to the chicken nuggets and peas in his stomach. Relax, he told them. This isn't a big drama. I'm just putting a couple of ads in the local paper. Next, said the woman behind the counter. Keith took a deep breath, stepped forward and handed her the two forms. She peered at them for ages. I can't read this writing. What section? Sorry, said Keith. What section do you want to advertise in? Toys, sport and equipment, computers and video games? What are you advertising? And my parents, said Keith. Your parents? It's okay, said Keith. They're separated. Keith had a quick word of his blood. Listen, he told it. Half of South London's in the queue behind us, so I'd really appreciate you not rushing to my face and making it go red. Thanks. This first one's advertising my dad, said Keith. Chef, 37 and a half, non-smoker, only swears on motorways, very little dandruff, good in goal, wants to meet kind woman, no criminal record, to go out together and be friends. Keith paused in case any woman in the queue wanted to fix up a date now and save him the 27 pence a word. No one did. Never mind, thought Keith. People probably haven't got time for romance when they're trying to work out how much to ask for their lawnmower. This other one's advertising my mum. Council employee, only been 36 for a couple of weeks, very good at Monopoly, expert cuddler, never gets car sick, wants to meet kind man. Excuse me, interrupted the woman. Did your parents write these adverts themselves? No, said Keith. They would have done, but they've been a bit depressed lately. We went to live in Australia to try and save their marriage, but it didn't work out, and they've been in the dumps a bit since we got back. I'm afraid we only accept personals from the individuals concerned, said the woman. This is what he'd feared. Please, he said, just this once. Sorry, said the woman. Oh, go on. You were bringing happiness to two seriously depressed people. Sorry, said the woman. My best friend's coming from Australia for a holiday and she's only here for 11 days. What's that got to do with it? Well, Tracy can perk anyone up, said Keith. Even people seriously depressed. Sorry. Next. Ridiculous, said Mum. That woman hasn't got a bottom. Look at those ridiculous shoulders. She's got enough padding in there to stuff a car seat. Keith sighed and had another chocolate finger. It was getting worse. Only 3 months since Mum and Dad had split up, and here was Mum spending it every evening flopped in front of the telly, criticising the adverts and neglecting her waistline. Part your fingers, love, said Mum. Up until 3 months ago, Mum had been dead strict about chocolate fingers. 2 a day and 10 on birthdays, that had been the rule. And now it was a box a night. And she didn't even care how many he had either. Perhaps if I pretend I didn't hear, thought Keith, she'll forget she asked. Keith, said Mum, use one of those chocolate fingers to clean the wax out of your ears and pass the rest to me, please, love. At Dad's place, things weren't much better. Dad was staring at a naked woman. She looked exactly like Mrs. Lambert, but it couldn't be. A geography teacher wouldn't lie in a red velvet settee wearing only a tiara and a pair of green slippers and let someone do a painting of her. Not if the painting was going to be shown on telly.
And the 18th century Italian masterpiece sold today for £27 million.
OK if I stay tonight, said Keith. Course, said Dad, any time you like, you know that. Dad, said Keith, do you feel like going bowling? I'll pay. He held his breath. Think positive. Not tonight, said Dad. I'm settled here now. There must be plenty of other places to advertise Mum and Dad's, thought Keith. Telly, for example, or magazines, or on the sides of buses. Keith grinned as he imagined painting a huge picture of Mum and Dad on the side of a bus, including their phone numbers. Then his face fell as he wondered how much London transport would charge. Thousands, probably. What I need, thought Keith, is somewhere cheap I can display a really attention-grabbing picture of Mum and Dad where it'll be seen by loads of people who aren't being distracted by lawnmower prices. Of course. Why hadn't he thought of it before? Come on, Dad, stop moving about. Entries in the school art show close at lunchtime today. Tragic, thought Keith sadly, and only 37. Keith told himself to think positive, squeezed out some flesh pink, and got on with the job. Keith could hear Mum splashing in the bath and the radio playing a sort of violin music that usually made him feel depressed. Not today, though, because it was just what he needed to drown out any door squeaks. Keith sent an urgent message to the batteries in Mum's radio. Don't conk out, please. Through the steam, he could see Mum in the bath, eyes closed, chin on her chest, shoulders slumped, and sort of curled forward. Tragic. And Mum only 36. Never mind, thought Keith, she's got a wonderful personality. Think positive. Said Mr. Browning. Interesting. Mr. Browning didn't look very interested to Keith. He looked like he'd just eaten some varnish. Keith reminded himself that Mr. Browning always looked like that while he was thinking about a picture. Must be something art teachers learn as part of their training. Title? It's got two titles, said Keith. The left-hand side's called Nude Dad with Frying Pan. I made him nude, said Keith hurriedly, because the great painters of history had some of their biggest successes with nudes. The frying pan is to show he's a chef in a cafe, and to hide his rude bits. Said Mr. Browning. Very good use of colour, especially your dad's blue hair. Keith decided not to mention that it was actually a plastic shower cap he'd added to cover Dad's bald patch. And what's the right-hand side called? Venus soaking her corn, said Keith. Mum's name is actually Marge, but the great painters of history usually call their lady nudes Venus. Or Mona. Said Mr. Browning. And having a playing Monopoly in the bath. Very imaginative. And is that a phone number in soap suds floating on top of the water? Keith nodded and felt his heart speed up. It was working. Mr. Browning was becoming fascinated by Mum's finer qualities. She's good at Scrabble too, and cards. Then he remembered Mr. Browning was married, with triplets. But she hasn't got very good feet, he said hurriedly. You better lower your voice in case she hears you, said Mr. Browning. She's not here, said Keith. She's doing a late shift. Well, your dad then. Don't want him hearing you bad-mouthing your mum's feet. Mum and Dad are separated, said Keith, and Dad's doing dinners at the cafe till 9. Keith glanced around the school hall. They couldn't all be mums and dads. There must be some single people. Then with a jolt, he realised some people were looking at his painting. He strained to hear what they were saying. Dodgy legs. Hers aren't much better. Tragic, thought Keith. Fancy thinking the most important thing about a person is whether the veins in their legs stick out a bit. Hope I've remembered everything Tracy likes. Beetroot tinned, Vegemite large, pineapple fresh, coconut whole, peanuts boiled, sugarcane unprocessed, bubblegum mango. Keith suddenly stopped. Parked in the street was an ambulance with its back doors open. He was only 58, said a woman in the crowd. Poor thing. Bet it was his heart, said another woman. No, said the first woman. Lost the will to live, more like. Mrs. Mellish was killed by a bread van 8 years ago. Poor Mr. Mellish has been on his own ever since. Kill you stone dead, loneliness can, said a man. Keith stared at the stretcher. A dreadful feeling was growing in his guts. What if they were right? What if loneliness could kill people stone dead? Keith realised his chest had gone tight. He sent a stern message to his brain. Stop it. Think positive. What was it Auntie Bev had said? If you want to get noticed, dazzle the punters, of course. Dazzle the punters. A mural, said Mr. Dodd. It'll brighten up that dirty brickwork no end, said Keith. And instead of doing the houses like they are now, I'll do them in really good colours so people can see how great their places would look if they bought some paint from you. And you wouldn't want any money, said Mr. Dodd. Just the paint. Said Mr. Browning. Interesting. Keith waited anxiously for him to say more. Can't be easy being an art teacher, thought Keith. You pop out for some groceries in the school holidays, come round the corner with your shopping bags, and there's one of your pupils finishing off a 20-foot painting. Title, said Mr. Browning. Dazzle the punters, said Keith. Keith watched proudly as Mr. Browning studied Dad's muscular suntan gold legs, non-saggy suntan gold lower buttocks, and smiling suntan gold face. And Mum's cascading goddess blonde ringlets with suntan gold highlights, non-droopy suntan gold hips and bunion-free suntan gold feet. Superbly balanced composition, said Mr. Browning. Thanks, said Keith. Your parents know you've done this? No, said Keith. Not yet. Amazing, said Mum. Incredible, said Dad. It was working. Keith could see the thoughts going through their minds. Exercise, Dad was thinking. Hair transplant. Suntan lamp. Perm, Mum was thinking. New swimsuit, get me feet done. Great houses, said Dad. Who were those weird people? Keith looked over his shoulder. There was no one there. Then he realised Dad meant the people in the mural. Suddenly Keith was having trouble breathing. It's a joke, said Mum. Keith's making fun of all those ads for cars and chocolate bars and perfume that are full of people the rest of us couldn't ever possibly hope to look like. It's very funny, Keith. I like it. Stay calm, Keith told himself. All that's happened is that Mum and Dad's eyesight is going. That's a very imaginative way of signing your paintings, love, said Mum. Putting your phone numbers instead of your name. Tragic, thought Keith. They're so used to being saggy and wobbly they can't even recognise their real selves. It'll be fine, he told himself. As soon as passer-by start seeing the mural, Mum and Dad's phones will be ringing hot with invitations to the pub and the pictures, and they'll have to start thinking about suntan lamps and hairdos then. Keith looked up at the mural. Mum and Dad's suntan gold faces grinned down in from the wall. Good one, Keith said to them. Think positive.